So there I am, I'm 8 years old, and I'm venturing to camp for the first time ever. Now, many of you are probably wondering, how difficult could it possibly be to go to camp? Well, if you are an 8-year-old girl from Brooklyn, New York, a young Jewish girl who's been doted on lovingly by her parents, this was a big deal with a capital B. So the entire trip from Brooklyn to Manhattan, I'm in the car with my mom and my dad, and I'm nervous as anything, and I'm saying to my parents, can I do extra chores around the house? Is there anything else I could do? I'll clean up, I'll do better, whatever you need, because camp was absolutely punishment for me. So in that trip, I was so nervous, my mom had to help me out of the car, and in front of me is a bus the size of Nebraska. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness, my parents want to send me away, not for 1 week, not for 3 weeks, but for 8 whole weeks. It's great for them, of course, not necessarily so good for me. And I'm so nervous, my mom has to help me out of the car and bring me onto the bus and plop me into the seat. And for the entire 2-hour ride from Manhattan to Tannersville, Pennsylvania, where I went to camp, I cried. And my seatmate must have loved me. And you know what I did when I got to camp? I cried. And I called my mother, asking her to please take me home. And for 14 consecutive days, I cried and I called. And then finally on the 15th day, it stopped. I got used to it. I loved the enormous megaphones that would wake you up with that loud music every single morning. I actually started to like powdered eggs. And I started to like volleyball, the kid that didn't really play sports, me, volleyball. I started to love it. And I started to like the plays and the sports and all the activities, and I started to make friends. So much so that when my parents came to pick me up at the end of camp, first things out of my mouth to my mom was, can I go again? Can you sign me up again? Now, I'm not suggesting that you go to camp, although it might sound like a good time. What I am saying is we are on one heck of a road trip in the media business today. That's been acknowledged by everyone today. Whatever you thought was going to happen is completely wrong. Whoever thought you'd be competing against an online bookseller called Amazon? Whoever thought we'd be competing against an online DVD rental business, if you remember those days, for Netflix? And much like myself, you could be standing at the bus crying, saying, oh, I wish for the good old days when there was no cord cutting and television was just television. But we don't get to turn back the clock, unfortunately. What we get to do is to figure out how we deal with the velocity and the barrage of change that we are faced with every single day. And on top of that, you could be like I did, where you're standing at the bus of change, crying, or you could acclimate the way I did at camp. And when I acclimated, things changed. Just like when you acclimate, you could be the innovative thinker and leader for tomorrow that is now being required of every single one of us.